Now let's talk about the small intestine. The small intestine is the muscular tube that extends from the stomach all the way down to the intestine, and it has three different parts. The first part of the small intestine is known as the duodenum. The second part is known as the jejunum, and the third part is known as the ileum. And I usually remember these terms by remembering that the small intestine is the DJ. It loves music, so I call it the DJ ileum, duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Most of the digestion occurs here in the small intestine, and we extract nutrients and calories via chemical digestion and absorption. And one key to remember is about the small intestine is that it has a very large surface area for absorption. When we look at the lumen of the small intestine, the location where food travels through or chyme travels through, we're going to see that the inner part of the small intestine is going to have circular folds known as plicae or plicae circularis, which are ridges of submucosa in the lumen of the small intestine that cause the chyme to spiral. Now, if we zoom in at the surface of the small intestine, we're going to be able to find enterocytes. Entero means intestine, and cytes means cells. So we're talking about intestine cells that are dedicated for absorption of ions and nutrients. In the submucosa, we're going to find capillaries, which absorb digestive proteins and sugars and delivers them into the bloodstream. We're also going to find lacteals in the submucosa, which are part of the lymphatic system. This is a lymphatic capillary that is actually going to absorb digested lipids. We're also going to find goblet cells that are part of the small intestine and secrete mucus. And finally, we're going to find stem cells found in the crypt lumen, deep inside the layer, the surface layer of the small intestine. And these are going to be there to replace any damaged cells that need to be replaced. So the small intestine has a large surface area because it has finger-like projections of mucosa known as intestinal villi. And under the mucosa, in the submucosa, we are going to contain capillaries and lacteals. Now, if we look back again at the mucosa, at the epithelial layer, we're going to find enterocytes. And enterocytes are going to have microvilli, which are small projections of plasma membrane. And what they do is that microvilli increases the surface area even more, which increases absorption of nutrients like amino acids and sugars, which are delivered to the bloodstream, or fats, which are delivered to the lymph. So the small intestine is going to be mixing and moving the chyme primarily by segmentation, and it's going to be digesting carbohydrates, fats, polypeptides, and nucleic acids. The small intestine is going to be absorbing peptides by active transport. It's going to absorb amino acids, glucose, fructose by secondary active transport. And it's also going to be absorbing fats by simple diffusion. It's also going to absorb water by osmosis. And it's also going to absorb ions, minerals, and vitamins by active transport. The small intestine is going to secrete alkaline mucus, which is going to coat the lining of the small intestine by using goblet cells. The small intestine is also going to secrete antimicrobial compounds for immune responses using Paneth cells. And the small intestine is also going to produce and secrete gastrointestinal hormones by using enteroendocrine cells. So this slide is showing you the different cells that are found in the small intestine. In the small intestine, we're going to find goblet cells that are going to secrete mucus. The Paneth cells are going to secrete antimicrobial agents. The enteroendocrine cells are going to produce hormones that are going to be sent into the bloodstream. And the enterocytes are going to be absorbing nutrients. So now let's talk about the hormones produced by the enteroendocrine cells. The enteroendocrine cells are cells that secrete hormones in the intestines. Again, entero means intestines, endocrine, we're talking about hormones, the endocrine system. And we're going to talk about three hormones. The first one is known as cholecytokinin, which is abbreviated as CCK. Chole means bile, cysto means sac, kinin means move. So this means movement of the bile sac, or we're moving the bile sac. So CCK is going to stimulate the gallbladder contraction. It's going to inhibit stomach emptying. So it's going to prevent the stomach from releasing that partially digested food, which is known as chyme, into the small intestine. And CCK is also going to suppress hunger. Secretin is the other hormone, and secretin regulates pH in the small intestine by inhibiting secretion of gastric acid, and it stimulates the pancreatic bicarbonate production, which neutralizes the acids in the small intestine. The other hormone is known as gastric inhibitory polypeptide, which is abbreviated as GIP. The main thing that it does is that it stimulates insulin release, even though its name doesn't really tell you that. Okay, so once again, gastric inhibitory polypeptide mainly stimulates insulin release. And it does inhibit gastric acid secretion. However, it only does this very weakly. So it's a weak inhibitor of gastric acid secretion. The large intestine is the last part of the digestive system. It's the location where waste is concentrated as feces for removal by defecation. Propulsion here, okay, movement of feces, is actually performed by segmental mixing. And digestion, we really don't do much digestion in the large intestine. Most of the digestion is done by our good bacteria. Absorption, what do we absorb here? We absorb ions, we also absorb water, minerals, vitamins, and small organic molecules produced by bacteria. And note that diarrhea can actually cause dehydration, the loss of water. Okay, and finally, secretion is okay. We only secrete mucus here, which is performed by goblet cells.